Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. It's an honour to have you join me today. So whether you're walking your dog, exercising, working, or sitting in your favourite armchair, my plan is to inspire you with a stimulating conversation about how you could be more productive while also having a little good old-fashioned fun along the way. How does that sound? Now, I don't know about you, but it often feels like my smartphone is giving me notifications every 30 seconds, and sometimes I even feel like the guy in the Lost TV show having to put in a series of numbers just to stop something bad happening. And I can't help but think that technology was supposed to make our lives easier and make us more productive. But it can feel that we've become less productive, and most critical of all, we've lost the art of daydreaming. Because instead of looking out the window, we're always reaching for our phone and staring at a screen. And for me, daydreaming is where the magic happens. So today, I've invited Sophie from a company called Be Current onto the podcast to talk about reclaiming productivity as a gateway to your purpose, not the ability to achieve a longer to-do list. And we're going to be discussing the importance of being deliberate about what takes residence in your mind and helping you build the life you love, create the moments that you love one after another. Because that's got to be a guarantee of a happy life, right? So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Los Angeles so we can speak with Sophie about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Sophie. I'm French, as we were just talking about. I've lived in the States, though, for 30 years. So I'm an adopted child, I think. And I'm obsessed with productivity from the standpoint of not so much making more widgets, moving things that are not so relevant, just to check off everything on our list, but rather making sure that we align our productivity with our purpose and what matters to us, so we don't end up just busy, pedaling on a bicycle that's going faster than us. So that's my space. I'm really excited to help people understand themselves in the space of time, because there's no such thing as managing time. People talk about time management. We don't manage the weather. We don't manage time. Those things we don't manage. We manage us, right? In the context of time passing. So that's my shtick. That's where I'm interested in playing.
And that's one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today. You are the perfect person to tackle the topic of productivity and the role of technology too, which is something that really intrigues and excites me. And we have more and more tech tools than ever before to help us be more productive, but we often just end up being bombarded with notifications that distract and disturb us. And anyone that's got things like Slack, Outlook and Zoom and Teams will know those notification sounds within the first opening bars. But can you tell me more about how we can reclaim productivity as a gateway to our purpose rather than the ability just to achieve a longer to-do list, like you said a few moments ago? Because I must admit, I know I'm guilty of that sometimes.
I think if we started from the root of it all, we would gain good traction. I think the reason people do too much notification and sign up to too many newsletters and just do all of that inbound is a lot because they don't trust themselves. They often don't feel their own feelings. It's similar to eating too much food, drinking too much cigarettes, drinking too much alcohol and smoking too much cigarettes or weed or whatever. I think people are far from their own voice to begin with. And so I think notifications have become just a new addiction. Tech has become just a new, maybe before it was alcohol and porn and cigarettes. And now it's, notifications and the new geeky thing I think all of it has to do with, I don't necessarily know myself. I don't necessarily like myself. I don't know how to deal with this thing that's going on in here. And so, especially in the times that we're in right now that are really crazy, I know everybody's trying to find their own ways to speak of it, but it is a little bit different than anything any of us have ever experienced, I think. So I think we use tech and we use all these toys similarly than we might have used before, a way to get ourselves out of our feelings and our being, a bit. And I think it's maybe time to kind of go back to a little bit more of that. What do you think about that? Do you spend time in quiet and slow and a little bit calmer sometimes?
I'm afraid I'm one of those guys that's always on as well. So I completely get that, bombarded with notifications and emails. And I must admit, when I look at my phone and if I see any numbers on any of those apps, it just drives me insane. It's got to be clear. And
you've got to go. You've got to go do it. What is that?
Do it.
What do you think? What is it? What do you think is it that pulls you though?
I don't know, but if there is an app that overdoes it and I don't use it that much, I get rid of the app. I remove it from my life. It seems to be the best thing to do. And I think, I love how you've likened it there to over drinking and smoking or eating too much. So if we strip it all back, what do you think it is that most of us get wrong about productivity? And I mean, whether we're in the office or working remotely or indeed a coffee shop now, because it's not the location agnostic now, aren't we? It's work from anywhere. But what are we getting wrong, do you think?
I think it has to do with thinking that the answer is going to come from outside of ourselves, the next toy, the next thing, the next book, the next something. And I think we far from who am I? What do I want? What turns me on? What turns me off? What do I want to accomplish in this life? Like these questions are buried very deep because of all this superficial, do I have a like on my post today? Or do I have is there some sort of a banner on my phone that I didn't answer? Which I think we've developed a bit of a illusion that maybe that's going to bring some sort of happiness, and we're still on a quest for happiness. And of course, that doesn't do it because it's not anything that's on the outer. And so, like everything else, I think we've gone too far as a culture. We've just gone too far. I grew up, I don't know how old you are, but I grew up, there was barely fax machines. It was like, literally, I was around where it was like, oh my God, we sent a piece of paper through the air. Like, what is that? What is that? And all of a sudden we're like, in my home, my refrigerator tells me if I need milk. It's like, what? How did I get here? And how did I not, I think it's become, if we're not deliberate about call it whatever you want, your spiritual quest, your philosophy, your self-discovery, whatever it is, any kind of word that fills in I get to know myself more as I go, I think is what we're doing wrong. We're not doing that. We're not doing enough. It's not so much that the other stuff we're doing wrong. I think we're just not doing enough of the good stuff, which is be present, I don't know if you have kids, but like we are so busy in our heads right now, we cannot sit with them, with ourselves. Mind you, they're sitting with a phone and doing the same thing. So I don't know what we're doing to them using, technology as babysitters. So I think our culture is going to get a little bit shaken from all of this far away from ourselves thing that we're doing a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's nothing sadder in the world than seeing a child desperately trying to get their parents' attention, but they're face down in the phone. And when they do go to give them the attention that they desperately want, they just hand them the phone instead. It's like you've passed that on.
Or even worse, I witnessed in a restaurant maybe a year ago, it was before pandemic, I was in a restaurant. So that must have been 2019 or something. But this woman was absolutely not paying attention to their kid. So the kid is playing some video games, both of them loud in a restaurant, which is already, thanks for those of us that really don't like this beeping sounds, but all right. So the entire 20 minutes or so, like the kids are just doing their thing, right? And then she gets off the phone and now she wants to be, playing with the kids, and the kids are not like they engage in their game. So now they don't want to interact with her because, it's been 20 minutes of completely being ignored. She ripped the phones off their hands. Like she grabbed their phones and it was like, now it's my time. And maybe earlier in my life, I would have gone over. I was with friends and I didn't, but I would have just gone over and been like, you are so screwed up, woman. It's like they were just really wanting your attention and you ignored them. When it's your turn and you want your attention, then you kind of yank that thing out of them. I think that is wrong. I do. I think that we are forgetting what is most relevant in all this. It's like we're running on these treadmills and it's a little bit like, where are we going? Where are we all going?
And so many great points you made there, and I completely agree with you. And I think these stories that we just shared, we all see them every single day of our lives. And in our own lives, we're also juggling all these notifications that we talked about. So if we do talk about trying to take a step back, what are the actual benefits of focusing on the importance of being deliberate about what takes residence in our mind? And also, how can technology help to get us in that place rather than overtake and give us more things to do? Because technology was always meant to make our lives easier, wasn't it?
Until some people gathered and started exploring how to make us more consuming, addictive, beings. I think it's not as much that right intention. For a while, it's been something else. But I love your question, because technology can, as everything else, technology can be a fantastic support for our growth. Like one of the things I teach has to do with Trello, which you may be familiar with, the project management tool, which is similar to, many people use different things like Monday.com or many others. But what I like in that technology is I get to empty my head in it. I use it as a way to not be, chattery and noisy in my head. It's like the second I have a thought, the system has a place for it to put. Like, think of it as like when you come back from the market maybe and you have all these bags, you know where to put stuff. Like, to put the meat in the fridge and the toilet paper in the bathroom. Like, you're not sitting in the middle of your house like, where do I go with all this? But that is what we do with our thoughts. Like, we have ideas, we have thoughts, we have things we owe other people, we have things we've committed to, we have like all of that. And it's like we come home with our bags of all that and we just dump it in the middle of our brain, without so much as like, do I want to do this? Is it something I really want to commit to? Should I say no to something? That's the other thing that I've been really, I'm on I don't know what that's called, but like some sort of a missionary something, because people are completely disconnected from, do I even want this? Like, do I know how to say no? Like, how many people do we know, maybe even us at times, but it's like people will want something from me and I don't know how to say, I'm not interested. I have some things I'm doing that are more relevant to me because I want them to like me. And so I'll say yes. And then I'm finding myself building furniture for people I barely know. And it's like, what am I doing? Right. And so I think there's something with the technology, with ourselves, with other people, learning to say no to the notifications, no to the friend demanding something of us, but also no to ourselves. Like, hey, I've been watching TV for 6 hours. Maybe that's good. That's a good binging little chunk. Should I go do something else? I mean, it's okay I have nothing. I binge all the time on good TV shows, particularly British ones lately, by the way. I've loved these like police solving British kind of like completely nonchalant about like, anyway, that's a different road. But I can find myself, watching a show for a while. And at some point, it really is a force to extract me from this, already designed to entertain me, like I'm passively, being given something, right? Sitting here. Now I don't even have to go to a movie theater. I just sit in my bed and watch it. It's like, but the effort it takes to say, I'm going to stop doing this because my life is important. And I want to go do something about it. And I want to go be ready for this call. And I want to go write a book. I want to go help. I mean, whatever it is, that your thing is. You were asking about, that was a really good question though. How do we use technology to serve us really, as opposed to be slaves of them, And to me, one of the core one is to be selective the way we are with our foods and our friends. We don't just let anyone walk in our house. Why do we let any app, I download stuff, I try it for 2 minutes. I'm like, is this really going to add anything to my life? I don't think so. And then I'm deliberately removing it because I know the tendency, like if I go to a pastry shop, it's going to be easier for me to want chocolate cake than if I don't go to the pastry shop, right?
Yeah. And I must admit, I'm guilty of keeping myself permanently busy. But one of the things that I've realised over the last few years in particular is we've almost lost the art of daydreaming now, because as a man of a certain age growing up, I might sit in my favourite armchair and just think about random thoughts, but now I would reach for my phone and scroll. Yeah. I might go for a walk, listen to the birds in the trees, but now I've got a podcast or music plugged into my ears. And and if I'm on a train traveling somewhere, I'm probably going to be on a laptop or my phone again, rather than just staring out the window and having those random thoughts. So can you tell me more about why we should be creating space to be with ourselves and not filling every minute to avoid it, and why it's so scary where we're heading at the moment?
Well, maybe it's a way to think of it as a little bit like breathing. Like if you were just intaking your breath and you never outtake anything, what would happen to you? You know, it's like there's a flow to receiving and giving and learning and processing. And it's like the nature is built on some polarity of, you know, electricity doesn't work if there is not plug this way and hold that way. It's like it doesn't work. And trees don't work if they don't made the proper way. It's like there really is a nature to, and if we keep like inputting, and there is very little space, I think our tolerance for being with ourselves is less and less. You know, I don't watch anything that scares me on TV. Like I've made a deliberate choice. I don't watch horror films. I don't watch, I just don't. But the other day I caught some sort of preview to something and I was so horrified. Like I was trembling because my system is not used to watching these like super loud, super red, super in your face, whatever that thing was, monster they were going after. And it's like my system has not developed the tolerance, which I think a lot of people watch. It's like the frog, it's like the frog that you cook in cold water. And then as the water warms up, she doesn't realize she's being cooked, and I think we're there. I think we're being fully on, boiled. And here's the point for me. I trust humanity. I think we've all heard and we've all seen or studied, especially in Europe. I think we study history a little bit more maybe than we do in the States. And there are phases, right? There's like we do things and then we realize we went too far and then something breaks down, us or the planet, or the age of something goes away. I think we're there. I think we really have pushed the envelope really, really far. And I don't know, nature doesn't really like what we're doing right now, which hence, what's happening. I think there's a lot of, I live in LA, so there's earthquakes. Like 2 weeks ago, there was an earthquake in the middle of a pandemic and there was a fire across the thing in the mountain. And I was like, it's like the plague, right? It's like something's happening. Like the next thing we know is like, there's going to be frogs falling from the sky or something. I just think the humanity pushes its boundary. We like teenagers or toddlers, right? Yeah. We just push and push and push. And I think we're pushing pretty far right now. And money is the engine for a lot of things. I mean, why do you do all those, notifications, and why do you catch all that stuff? And because, we want to be more successful somehow. And that's a beautiful engine. It's just, I think it's gone a little out of our deliberate choice somehow. I feel like we're a little bit in a machine that was decided for us, slightly against us. And that we need to take it back. We people have to do the work to be deliberate, to be loving, to be slower, to be present with our kids, with ourselves. Like you were saying, daydreaming, man, that's like, isn't that where most beautiful things like happened? In the slow and in the space.
It really is. That's where all those great ideas come from. I mean, now possibly the only time that you get that chance is in the shower. And people say, why do I always get great ideas in the shower? And that is why it's the only time you've got no technology, right?
That's true. Now you get out of the shower and you have technology to record something about it or write something about it or speak to your phone about it or do a little research to see if someone else. Like, I wish we used all this with more choice and more, what's that word? Discernment. Yeah. It's because we are addicts. Like a lot of humans, they don't do one chocolate cookie, they do the whole bag. In the end of the bag, they're like, how did I get here? Well, you're an addict. It's like a lot of us are just, wired to just go beyond and further. And so we do it with technology, the way we've done it with all these other things we talked about.
Absolutely. And I think after 1,500 interviews on here, people often say, what is the one thing that leaders have in common with each other, or secrets to their success? And I always say, really, it's serendipity. It's being in the right place at the wrong time. Maybe something crazy will happen. You get talking to the person that's going to fund your startup or offer you that dream job role. Or it's just like the stars align in the universe at that right time. But you've got to be open to that. You've got to be wide awake, look around and be open to those moments. And I think one of the things with working from home at the moment, we've lost the art of serendipity there. When in the workplace, it'll be the accidental bump into somebody at the water cooler moment, talk about what you mentioned on TV, and then at the end of that conversation, you end up solving a problem, which we're kind of losing. So do you think we should be learning to collaborate with ourselves and understanding the forces that initiate things like that, and why we do what we do and why? And can tech make that easier or harder, do you think?
I love this idea of collaborating, with each other and with ourselves. I feel like we have lost, there used to be this space you described, where you would have a chance to even feel what you're feeling. Yeah. Like, how would you solve anything without even knowing what's happening while you're in it? So yes, collaborating with oneself really requires a little bit of slower, gentler, quieter, because otherwise, there really is, it's in that space that strike of genius, or that serendipity doesn't happen. Serendipity doesn't happen in noise. Yeah. It can't. It's almost like it's like it's knocking on our head, right? It's like, come on, let me in. And we're like, well, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone doing something. Like even what you're describing of like the serendipity of walking in a park and you sit on a bench and you chat with someone. Now we all wearing our headphones and listening to something. Who's chatting? Yeah. Nobody's chatting. So yeah, like I said, I think humanity, which I trust, possibly, maybe, will pendulum, will come back. We'll come back to something where we'll start watching these kids that have, earphones permanently plugged in their ears. And it's like, well, maybe that's where we're going. Like, we're just going to be isolated little islands all on our own. And maybe that's where humanity wants to go. I don't know. Clearly humanity and the world has a direction, and it's like, I think collaborating with it is better than not, like resisting it. You just have to go to the Himalayas by yourself, even there, I'm sure there is now cell towers over there. Like, if you're going to climb that mountain, you better have signal. So even there, but I like participating in tech. I'm a geek. I just have my own, I've developed a boundary so that I don't get lost in it. I think that's where the miracle is to make sure you know who you are and what you care about. And as Simon Sinek refers to, start with your why. And if you have a strong why, it's harder for the universe to bombard you, because when things come at you, you're like, no, I don't do that. Or no, I'm not interested in that. Like, you're able to do that. If you don't even know what interests you, then you'll be like a hungry wolf at all times, just trying to find the next prey. It's the journey of men and women, I think.
Yeah, so true in what you're saying there. And I think it's fair to say, for anyone listening to our conversation, that the struggle is real. And I think most people will be able to resonate with everything that we've talked about here. But do you have any tips on how we can create an elegant and purposeful system to support that bigger life that we all crave?
I do. That is partly what I teach, of course. I'm interested in the system that I've developed on Trello. This productivity tool that I've developed has to do with emptying what's in your head. So at least you have a fighting chance, to slow down and quiet down up there. Like, when I finish my day, I can genuinely say, most time, 80% of the time, let's just say, my head is empty. It's like my steps are in my system. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. It's broken down in such a way that I know it's aligned with what I care about. And I don't finish my day with like, what did I forget? And then it's 2 a.m. and it's like, shit, I didn't do that thing that I said I was going to do. And I've really, that's what I've developed is a system that at least awakens this desire, back in us to not be so full all the time. And so I like this visual of like, we're running faster. The machine is going faster than us, and it's like, we have to be the ones who say, you know what, I'm going to step out of this machine. I'm going to watch the machine go for a moment. So yeah, I think elegance has to do with trusting that there's something in us that has more power than all that stuff.
100%. And from the work that you're doing, do you have any use cases that you can share that will bring everything that we've talked about today to life and help people listening, wherever they are in the world, learn how they can reclaim that connection between their productivity and their soul? Because that's ultimately what we're all searching for. But so do you have any stories that spring to mind there?
I do. I'm actually working with a woman right now who's she was a very high level consultant in, very traditional corporate type gigs. And she's switching to becoming more of she calls herself like an intuitive coach, where she really teaches people because we have intuition, we have, something in the quiet that is wise and tells us what to do. And when I first met her, her intuition was in her socks. She was lost in the speed of things and starting something new. And she was just busy, 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 busy. And I was kind of like, isn't that what you teach, to slow down a bit and listen? And so together we developed, this system that I do for her. And she reached out a couple of days ago and she was like, I just had one of my best ideas. And it came out of space. It came out of slower, and so giving her the system that allowed that space to occur, she went back to her poetry of life, somehow.
Love that. Well, powerful story. And before I let you go, though, a question I always like to ask my guests, especially as a music lover, is there a particular song that has inspired you in the past, helped you in your career, helps you get your head in the zone before going on stage? I know we're talking 1,000%.
About...
Oh, okay. So I've got to say,
it's called "Saying It So." It's a song from Murray Head from the 80s, maybe. Yeah. "Saying It So." I kind of credit the song to having taught me English, to speak English, because I really wanted to understand what the song was. I listened to it on repeat on a regular basis. My daughter grew up to really love that song, and when she's going through a little slower time over there, or depressed, or any sadness or anything, she'll call me and we'll listen to the song together multiple times. We just kind of let the song take us. So I would definitely say that's a song that like cranks me back in place for sure.
Oh, I love that. And I will be adding that to the Spotify playlist for the show so other people can hear that. And
I'm so glad.
But before I let you go, can you remind the listeners of where they can find you online, learn more about your work, and contact your team if they've got any questions?
Sure. So the website is called becurrenttoday.com. The notion of being current, being exactly what we talked about, no need for the stuff we don't need. Yeah. Let's be current with ourselves. And so becurrenttoday.com is the website. Lots of resources there, lots of things we can do and find each other. This was one of my favorite, I have to tell you, this was one of my favorite interviews. I
bet you say that to all the podcast guys.
No, right? I don't. I'm not a liar. No, this truly, I feel like we just chatted and it was deep and it was connected. And maybe the British streak and the French thing, after all, there's something to Europeans. Well, almost Europeans. Yeah. Physically very close to one another.
No, I echo those sentiments too. And I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. And I think for anyone listening again, wherever they are in the world, that challenge to be current is something that we're all battling with now. So I would urge everyone listening to check out your website and try and be current, and also feedback to me how you're getting on with that journey. And I'd love to stay in touch with you and get you back on the podcast later in the year and have a little catch up there. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me today.
It was lovely. Thank you.
Wow, we could have chatted for hours there about creating a space to be with yourself and not filling every minute to avoid it. And about putting the tech down and learning to collaborate with yourself, understanding the forces that initiate everything that you do and why. Not to mention, of course, the power of creating elegant and purposeful systems to support your bigger life. But this is where I put the microphone out to each and every one of you. What are you doing to reclaim the connection between your productivity and your soul? I'd love to know more about how you're handling everything that we talked about and the big subject of productivity. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You get me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But rather than waffle on anymore, I'm going to try and be productive myself this afternoon. So I'm going to get out of here now. I'll see you again tomorrow with another episode. But thank you so much for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.